For reals this time. For reals. The real battle. Roger Bear versus G2. Big battle. Let's do it. Phalanx versus Hariyama, battle of the fighting type, but G2 doesn't like it for whatever reason and does switch out into Talonflame, getting hit by that Drain Punch, so that will be a threat later on for sure. Gotta watch out for Drain Punch in any situation. Gorbis comes in, Roger Bear's favorite Gorbis. Cool to see it. Goes for a Water Pulse, does not do any damage at all to the Tentacle, but does get a Confusion, could come into play later, we'll see. Tentacle going for Sludge. Gorbis staying in against the Tentacle. Kind of surprising to see that because we can see how little damage that's doing. But he's staying in. There we go. Runerigus coming in to fight the Tentacle. Surprising counter, but gets lucky with that Confusion hitting himself at that turn specifically. So the Runerigus gets to come in unscathed. Goes for Hex. Does okay damage to the Talonflame. I was going to say, it seemed like the Talonflame was probably just going to lose at that point. But the Obstagoon comes in as a very nice counter against the Runerigus. And Phalanx comes in to fight that. So this Obstagoon cannot stay in. Definitely cannot stay in. Obstagoon is 4 times weak to fighting. You don't want to see that happen. Talonflame in again. This Talonflame has switched in defensively quite a few times this battle already, and is now quite low. So we can see that that's kind of a big possible weak spot for G2, is that he seemingly needs this Talonflame in order to stay defensive against what Roger has. I believe that was just a double switch there. Let's check that out one more time. Yeah, so we had Talonflame against Phalanx, and it makes sense for the Phalanx to switch out because he's going to lose to the Talonflame. Let's see if we can figure out why G2 switched out. So G2 switched into his Hariyama, and Clef switched in for Roger. So it ended up being I think G2 was trying to predict a switch, but he ended up predicting it incorrectly because the Clefable will definitely beat the Hariyama here. So G2 kind of has to switch again, and that's what he does. Switches into Tentacruel, which would normally be very good against Clefable, but the Clefable does know Nature's Madness as one of its fairy moves. Very nice for Roger to be able to do half health of damage, despite the fact that Tentacle would normally resist quite well. Bubble Beam coming out on this Runerigus, doing huge damage, does get a crit, and Hex will go on to the Tentacruel. So this Runerigus kind of goes down for free. Switches in Weavile, getting some damage on his Weavile as well. Possibly a problem for Roger Bear. But because of that switch, he was able to take it down the Tentacruel, which is also a very strong defensive point. Raichu coming in against Weavile, which I guess will probably work. Raichu is actually slower than Weavile, so this Weavile could just attack if it wanted to. I don't know if Weavile can one-shot a Raichu, but it is possible. We'll see. Ice Punch from the Weavile does not one-shot the Raichu. Overdrive from the Raichu does not kill the Weavile either. So it ended up not being a very good play here for G2 to go to Raichu, because this Raichu did just die for one attack. So he's trading a whole Pokemon for a little bit of health on this Weavile. Did not work out very well for him. He did have that Hariyama available. Not actually sure why he didn't go to that initially. And Runerigus switches in on it. Double switch again here. Both players switching all over the place. Obstagoon comes in for G2 and Clef comes in for Roger. This Clef being a double again and getting a good matchup again. This Clef could be a very big problem for G2 here. Nature's Madness again, really hard to switch into a Nature's Madness because basically anything you switch into is going to come in with half health unless it's already damaged. So the Dawn Fan is already at half because of the Nature's Madness, and so that Clef has already done 50% plus 50%, so it's already done at least 100% of damage to Pokemon, which is really good for Roger. Water Pulse will do a little bit of damage to Obstagoon here. Brings in that Phalanx again. We have said right from the beginning that this Phalanx is a possible big threat for G2 because it does have Drain Punch, and G2 does have Obstagoon, which is really bad against Phalanx. Stays in surprisingly against the Phalanx, and the Phalanx does go for Drain Punch. His attack is lowered because of the Breaking Swipe, but it's still 4 times effective. It doesn't quite kill because he was at -2, but I mean, he's doing lots of damage and he's healing back to full. So you can't hate that trade too much if you're Roger Bear. Breaking Swipe again, bringing Phalanx down to -3. Goes for Aurora Beam. Maybe he was predicting a switch. Hard to say. Talonflame comes in, and Roger can just save his Phalanx if he wants to. Looks like he doesn't. Decides to trade it out there. Maybe he decided that now that the Obstagoon is dead, he doesn't need the Phalanx anymore. Very possible. Hard to say. Okay, he switches it out this time. I kind of can't help but feel like if you're gonna switch it out, you might as well switch it out immediately instead of taking a big hit and then switching it out. But either way, this Clefable does come in to fight the Talonflame. We have only seen Nature's Madness from it so far, and it definitely can't go for it here. So we see that his other attack is Disarming Voice, which is not nearly as useful and doesn't really do much to the Talonflame. So Roger realizes that and switches into Rapidash. Kind of would like to have seen him go for that earlier if he didn't have other options available. Goes for Dragon Pulse, finally finishes off this Talonflame, and G2 is down to 2 Pokemon here. One of them is Donphan, which is already at half health because of that Nature's Madness from earlier. Roger stays in, goes for a Mega Kick, does decent damage, but will die to the Land's Wrath. And Roger can now just switch in his Phalanx again and go for Draining Punch again. And not only take down this Donphan, but get a little bit of health back. So, as expected, this Phalanx just really had a nice matchup for Roger here. And we finish off here once again with Hariyama versus Phalanx. So we finally get to see who was stronger. That's what they started off with, and that's what they're possibly ending with. Phalanx goes for Draining Punch and heals up quite a bit. Hariyama goes for Spark, possibly trying to get a Paralyze. Gets a crit, which is nice. Doesn't get the para though. Phalanx goes for Draining Punch again. Looks like one more will kill. So G2 has to do something in order to stop this right now. Goes for Spark, does get the para. Nice play. That's kind of the only thing he probably could have done in order to fight this Phalanx. Goes for Spark again, does not get the full para, and the Phalanx will take down the Hariyama. Very nicely played. GG, Roger Bear.